guys and girls, and welcome to episode 67 of the FReality Podcast. This is a weekly VR, AR, and MR talk show that is live streamed every Saturday on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitch. You can tune into the show live at 7 p.m. in Europe, 6 p.m. in the UK, and 12 midday in Central US. You can also check out the audio version, which is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and on Anchor. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave us a review on iTunes because that would really help us out. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback during the show, please put them in the chat. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can. Hello to all of you that have joined us live in the chat. Hello to you. Make sure you keep the conversation going, and we'll try and pick out some questions and some nice bits of comments that you've put in the chat there, and we'll sort of read them out during the show. But if you're new to the show, let me introduce you to the team. First up, if you ever end up in prison, you'll definitely want this guy as your cellie because he can roll cigarettes, make hooch, and also handwritten erotic stories. It's Rowdy Guy. How you doing, man? You all right?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. Does anyone want an erotic short story?
I'll take two.
Take two?
Yes, please. Yes.
Check your inboxes tonight.
There should be like a Patreon. We should start a Patreon, and that'll be like a Patreon tier. You know, you get a handwritten erotic story from Rowdy.
Yeah,
but how you doing, man? You all right?
I'm all right, man. I had a rough week a little bit, but you know, like things go ahead, and you know, it's almost Christmas, so jolly times are ahead. So I'm looking forward to spending some time with the family as well.
Yeah, virtual hugs sent to Rowdy in the chat, please. Today. Yeah. So next up, this guy's been warping all over the galaxy this week on a dangerous mission to save the planet. But did he succeed? Well, that is the question I'm sure we're going to find out soon enough. It is, of course, Zimtok5. How you doing, man? You all right?
I'm fantastic. Yeah, I love the holiday season. It's great. I get to, you know, usher kids from stepping on my lawn with a paintball gun. It's fantastic. No, I'm just kidding. I don't actually do that. I always dreamed, Mike. Always dreamed. But no, it was great. And I got there. More on that later.
I really look forward to hearing about that story. Next up, this guy's been 360 no-scoping psychos, hoarding guns, and exploring the wastelands of Pandora. It is, of course, Nathie. How are you doing, man?
I'm still alive. After
survived.
Yeah, after exploring the open world of Borderlands that, you know, is full of traps, psychos, weird people, and claptraps, fap traps, everything. Actually, you know, when I went into
wait. Can you please explain?
No, I will. I will. So when I went into Claptrap's lair at the start of the game, I found a bed with posters above it of like a female Claptrap wearing a bikini, and there were oil stains on the bed.
Wow.
So Claptrap and Flaptrap are actually the same thing.
Yeah, well, it's his like nickname in some. Yeah, that's it. So, Flaptrap. Yeah.
Thank you for exploring the wastelands and delivering these fresh Easter eggs for us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, last but by no means least, myself, the host of the show, Mike from Virtual Reality Oasis. We've got a jam-packed show for you this week. We're going to be talking about the review from IGN of Borderlands 2 VR. Is this another example of mainstream media being overly harsh towards VR? Well, you can let us know what you think in the comments below. We're also going to be telling you about a new Beat Saber track that you've got to look forward to, some new VR game releases to keep an eye on next week, the new Odin VR headset. We're going to be giving you all the details on this upcoming headset from a Russian company called Deus. And then finally, the neurable emotion analysis. We talk about tech that's being combined with VR and eye tracking that allows you to control VR experiences with your mind alone. So mind blown. It's going to be a crazy show for you all. So I hope you guys and girls enjoy this one. But of course, let's start off the show with finding out what everyone's been up to in VR this week and their highlight of the week. And first, of course, let's kick it over to Rowdy Guy first.
Yeah, I think we all know what I'm gonna say, right? It's the return of the prison boss. Like, so many people have been saying that, like, just because I played the game. But yeah, indeed, like, I dove back into Prison Boss, tried it out on the PlayStation VR. I did immediately have a problem with it because I'm not used to like the turning on the PlayStation. So like, because it's only forward facing, you need to press a button to turn left or turn right. So I did that not in a particularly good manner because I kept on losing tracking because especially because you're getting anxious, the cop is coming, you want to put the stuff away, you turn around real quick, and then your controller starts like floating off. I was like, no, come back here, turn. I got caught a couple of times. That never happened while I was playing on the Vive, but it was still good fun. I still had a fun time playing around with that title, Prison Boss.
So is it move support only, or can you use the DS controller as well?
I think it's only move controller supported. It would make sense because there's so many like actions that you need to do, like the rolling of the cigarettes and
of course.
I mean, I haven't tried it with the DS controller, but I would assume that it would get kind of hard.
I'm now imagining Astrobot rolling cigs for you. He like jumps out of the controller. Don't worry, boss, I got this.
That's
fresh things.
People are saying in the chat that it has DS support though. I don't know how that would work. Maybe it's with the touchpad up the front that you can
That's great news for Rowdy. More content.
That would be interesting.
Can try it out as well.
Yeah. Now I'm playing it with the DualShock. But do you think, is it different in terms of content, or is it exactly the same game as before?
They did something. I mean, they made me a little bit curious about what is at the end, because there's like something that I haven't seen yet before. That's like a golden prison or something. So you need to, of course, unlock like all of the prisons before you get to that one. So I'm a little bit curious. Maybe I should check it out. Maybe I shouldn't. But it's like so much work to get there. So
I think we all know
people are enjoying the videos. But so maybe I will.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't made you an in-game character based on like how well your original series did.
Like one of the cops.
Oh yeah, exactly.
One of the prisoners.
I want him to be one of the pinups on the wall, like kind of prison style. Yeah. Behind there's an escape hole.
An egg-shaped pinup girl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everyone in the prison can have their own fat trap of Rowdy on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, let's find out what Zim has been up to then. I'm really curious about your story this week because, well, I'll let you tell the story. Go for it, dude.
Excellent. I'll tell my story.
Yeah.
Actually, so we're going to talk about From Other Suns, which if you don't know about From Other Suns, it's a game that is an amazing, almost clone of FTL, which is the 2D game, and really properly 2D, flattest game you can probably get, which is about space exploration. You get a crew, and it's kind of like Oregon Trail in that pretty much everybody's going to die at some stage. Thankfully, there's no space dysentery. I don't even want to think about that for a moment. But I started off my journey, and December for me, I just decided, it kind of clicked in my head. I was like, I'm going to beat some games. I'm going to fucking do some tidy up work. I guess, Mike, your Red Matter bit kind of ticked in my brain, and it was like, you know what? I've got some stuff I need to finish. There's some games I know I'm probably never going to finish, like Subnautica and Chronos. I think both of those games are probably I probably won't be able to. Subnautica because of bugs, and Chronos because it's just too bloody hard on hardcore.
By the way, I find it really cool that you're starting this story with, my journey started, back in December when I was like, oh man, like bring out the candles and the hot drinks, and like we're gonna get a nice little story here.
The reason there's so much padding at the start of the story, Rowdy, is because there's no fucking way I'm giving away the things I saw. Anyway, I'll just summarize pretty briefly here because it won't take too long. But while you're drinking your mulled wine or whatever it is as you're listening to this podcast, so From Other Suns is a game about space exploration. You basically have a map in front of you, and you're hopping with your ship. And as you're hopping across the galaxy, you're trying, number one, not to get caught by the aliens who are chasing you on the way to Earth. You're trying to get to Earth to basically save it. And all the meanwhile, the news reports are that this thing that's chasing you is, worse than the Terminator. So, and it is, that's not giving any spoilers. So, as you're jumping, you upgrade your ship. Crew can die off, or you can get extra crew by doing different missions. And there's a lot of surprise in the game. So I'd played it a bunch before, but this time I was like, I'm just going to go back and I'm just going to try and play it, because I'd never really gotten to the point where. And I'm not going to talk about the end loop of the game because I'll give some things away if I do. But what I do want to say is it definitely rewards you for getting there. There was a point where, and you can get hull breaches in your ships, which literally, if was behind me, there'd be a tear through the Skyrim poster, and space would be sucking out. In every single room of my ship, I had 2 holes. at one point.
Wow.
That is how extreme it got. My hull got down to 2% health, and we were up against like a Mach 3 pirate ship or something else that was blasting holes in us. We almost died so many times. It really, really was close. When we finally did complete the game, only thing I will say is, Mike, the things that you've seen in the game, there are worse things.
Wow.
And there are bigger things, and there are slimier things, and the game has a lot to offer, I would say, and there's still even more. If I went back and played it through a few times, now that I've gotten a new ship, I upgraded my ship, and you do unlock a ship that's kind of like it's like a small version of Elite Dangerous's Anaconda. It's like a real broad front to it. So you've got that new ship, but you've got more people. But the real cool thing about getting to the end, and the thing that I would say is, I would have never gotten there was it not for the players I played with online. People were just randomly jumping in every time. It took me 3 nights for me to beat the game, 3 nights of like 2-3 hour streams to finally get there in the end. But it was because I had people who were like seasoned and helped give me like little tips about what to go for, what not to go for, and it's really good. It was really,
so if you would have died at that point that you were at 2% hull, would you have to start all the way over?
Oh yeah. It's totally roguelike. Like you die, I've restarted that game so many times. It almost feels like Subnautica. I played Subnautica through about 8 times at this stage, but really worthwhile.
But like you say,
and
you do unlock stuff as you play through. So some stuff does unlock, which you carry over to the next game, right?
Well, and one of the things I was going to say is I played with a dude who was from like Tennessee or something. He was talking about shooting squirrels with a buddy on the phone while we were playing. It was crazy. And one of the things is after we beat the final end part of the game, which again I'm not going to give you any details. You got to go play this game. I didn't expect that at the very tail end like that you would have this cycle of his surprise was he said, how do you in this starting ship, this skimmer, actually have beaten the game? I've never seen anyone do that. And that was a really interesting thing, because how do you get past that? You must have to beat it with the skimmer, which is your first kind of starting dinky ship. But the next ship that you get has better guns, more crew, all that kind of stuff. So the game actually gets harder, and at the same time, you're getting a better ship and better equipment. But the game actually gets tougher the deeper you get into it, which is really interesting to me. So will I be playing through again? Yes.
And how long in terms of hours did it take you to complete this game?
Like I know a guy. The other thing I would say is it ramps, so it's going to depend on how many people you play with. If you play on your own, it might actually be shorter. I played with an average of maybe 2.5 people, usually 3, sometimes 2, and it took me in total probably 30 to 35 hours in total to beat it. And
but in terms of your final run, how long did it take?
8 hours.
Oh wow!
8 hours.
Wow, that's pretty decent. That's really long. Yeah. I was expecting you to say you just started a new game and you completed it with these guys in like a few hours. Or something.
No. So that was like I had like 4 different crews, and you have your save game, so the save game follows me. I'd start up a new game, and then new people would jump in. I had some real weird people. I love meeting weird people online, but anyway. I've taken up too much airtime already. But thanks, Mike. It was a fantastic run. You have to play it. The only thing that I would recommend, I know some people differ in this opinion, but out of all the Revive titles that I've played, I really think that From Other Suns should be played on Rift. If you really have to play it on Vive because you're a Vive-only player, okay. But it definitely doesn't get my stamp of comfort because with those trackpads, it just doesn't translate very well. So that's actually the only game on Revive I'd say maybe don't try.
Or you have to get those weird 3D printed.
Oh god, those the thumbsticks that stick up over the trackpad.
Yeah,
you could try it.
Well, now that you've got this amazing ship, maybe this is the time for me to jump in and I can take advantage of your upgrades. And
the only thing I could say, Mike, is amazing ship also goes with. I got lost for 10 minutes on the ship trying to find the med bay. It literally took me 10 minits on this ship to find the med bay because it's multi-tier and stuff. And I was disappointed when there was no Beverly Crusher in the med bay. But anyway, I'll survive. I'll survive.
Well, that sounds awesome. That sounds really cool. I'd also love to know in the chat what games people have been playing this weekend. Anyone in the chat got any good suggestions? Okay.
Yeah. So let's see. We have Watauk who played. Let me see. What did he say? Like the chat is going so fast. We have a lot of people.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. He only played Farpoint this week.
Oh, nice.
Pancake stuff. Don't tell PD, by the way. Battlefield 5, Just Cause 4, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and Destiny 2. And then Project James Fire, who's also in the chat. That's
Hey,
a
James.
celebrity right there.
Yeah.
He played the new Hearthstone expansion, and we do have some VR too here. Eric played Apollo 11 HD.
Oh yeah, nice.
Nice.
It's the new, the new one, the new HD version.
Basically new textures and things like that, right? It's an upscaling of, but it's the same.
Yeah, true. And then last but not least, we have Tyrell. He's also in the chat. We have a lot of famous people today.
Very famous.
Sam and Dan Floaty Flatmates. This is like a co-op title, Fresh, and the Talos Principle, who just launched on on Oculus Home as well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That co-op game does look like a lot of fun.
It does. It's strictly co-op, is it? It looked like it was strictly co-op.
Yes, and it's relatively short from what I understand.
I heard that
but yeah,
as
you can
well.
play with 2 players.
Yeah.
So for Rowdy, you need friends to play this game.
Nah. Rowdy passes. Hard pass for Rowdy.
With friends is okay. With friends is okay. As long as it's not those weird guys that were in Zim ship.
Oh, Zim, then you also can play it.
I had an amazing dude. He was French, and he was like, he knew his English was terribly broken, but he was still making all the effort to communicate, and he was really patient. He must have been like 30, 40 or something. You know, when you're like, like younger guys aren't as patient. Like, he was super patient, and it was just like, don't worry, man, don't worry. It's like, and he could barely speak. It was awesome. I love that guy.
I love those random encounters with people, and you make these kind of strange friendships, and it's something that you'll always remember. You completed it together with them. That's so cool. But yeah, in terms of games that I played this week, the one I really want to talk about is The Climb. It's a game that I've been meaning to go back to for a long time now, and the game's actually 2 years old now. Can you believe it? Over 2 years old. It came out in April 2016. It makes me feel like an old veteran, like swinging the lamp. Back in the days, this was an amazing game. But it is an amazing game, and it's made by Crytek, if you weren't aware, the same team that brought you the amazing Crysis series. And the only other VR title they've ever made was Robinson the Journey, which actually released in November 2016, so later on that year. And they haven't been back to VR since then. So please, Crytek, if you're listening, come back.
They did make the Dinosaur Island titles, no? Wasn't that them as well?
Robinson the
Dinosaur
Journey.
No, I mean...
He means
Back
to Dinosaur Island Part 1 and 2, which was like a free... it was like an NVIDIA or GeForce promo thing. Yeah.
Okay.
It was made by them, I think.
But it was back then as well. I think it was 2016, 2017, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Almost like concept demos of Robinson the Journey before it was called Robinson the Journey.
Right, I see. But the thing is, like with The Climb, I don't know if you've ever played it before, like people in the chat as well, like it still stands as one of the most impressive looking VR titles to date. It's got this amazing engine that they've used, the scenery across these canyons and the Alps and this kind of Maldives kind of environment. It is stunning, and it's got so much detail in it as well. You've got little bugs crawling around, birds flying around your head. And the gameplay just works so well in VR. You're climbing these mountains. And for those that don't know, it's got this really interesting mechanic in terms of your grip and your stamina with your hands. So you have to use the trigger buttons on the touch controllers, and you kind of have to half press them to get the right amount of grip to hold onto the holds and the ledges when you climb. Because if you push it all the way when you're panicking, like if you look down, for example, you're like, oh crap, and you start panicking, well, the harder you press on your triggers, the more stamina you use for your grip, which then loosens your grip very quickly. So it means you could fall. And then it's got this added mechanic of chalking up your hands, which increases the stamina of your hands when you're holding on. And the funny thing is, like when you're using this chalk mechanic, you have to kind of shake your controller like this. So if you're playing this game, then make sure you've got the screen turned on in the background so people know that you're chalking up your hands and not doing something else in game, because it does. A lot of people watch my video and mentioned that in the chat, which I thought was hilarious, and I never even considered it when I was playing it. So it's kind of funny.
I have that with a lot of VR games, to be honest. Because what I sometimes do in a video is like I just put myself on the big screen. Like it looks hilarious no matter what game you're playing, but often it's like with a lot of sexual innuendo. Like weird.
Although the best example of that I saw was Josh Dub when he was riding his virtual horse with a green suit on. And then he just went to green screen, and it was just so funny. So shout out to Josh Dub for that awesome clip. But yeah, in terms of the climb, I'd forgotten how amazing some of these climbs were. And the one I played in the Alps took you up a mountain and then across, onto a cable car, which you had to jump to. And then the cable car started moving as well. And it was just incredible.
And the new expansions they released later are like way more dangerous. There is so much going on. You need to time more. Like the first few levels you play are more like a warm-up round. You can just, climb a safe mountain. But then later on, you have all kinds of things moving, and there are like all kinds of dangers happening in front of you that you need to deal with while you are climbing.
What Nathan's talking about, for instance, is where there's a crashed plane with the propeller hanging out, and you have to jump onto the propeller blade, and as it's turning, time a jump to another propeller blade or something else that's far away. It's nuts. Yes. It's really it's a really tough game.
Level yet.
You really have to
awesome.
get to the later levels. The ice level and the one with like the volcano
go for the ice one. The ice one is so funny.
It's so hard. But you can play against your friends as well, so I challenge you, Mike. Do better.
Yeah. And like people are saying, Twitch as well, the climb will also be on Quest. So
yeah, exactly.
So you can actually jump in real life.
Yes.
Instead of just,
And that's the thing. That's kind of like another reason why I wanted to go back to it, because I wanted to kind of show it off again, because it'd been a while since a lot of people had played it. And I kind of wanted to highlight the fact that it's coming to Quest, because we found that information out whilst we was at OC5 this year. But I'm super intrigued how they're going to port this game with all this graphical fidelity over to a standalone headset. It's going to be super interesting to see how they do that.
Maybe they don't. Yeah.
No, I don't
know. No.
Oh yeah, for sure. They have to downscale it somewhere.
No moving propellers anymore. You gotta somewhere delete something. They're just deleting things like, okay, let's just delete this because it's too much.
Yeah, you don't get the people on the wingsuits jumping off the mountains past your head anymore.
No trees, just a mountain. That's all. No,
just all brown, yeah. Just rocks. But yeah, so that is the climb. If you haven't checked it out on Rift yet, then definitely worth checking out. And of course, like you said, it will be coming to the Quest sometime next year. So let's talk about what Natie's played and kind of roll it into the first segment of our quick news as well. Because you've been exploring the wastelands of Pandora, like I said at the beginning, right?
Yes, I have played Borderlands 2 VR for science. It was a very interesting experience, yeah. And I played Borderlands before, so but it was a while ago for sure, because I didn't even like recognize most of the stuff. I was like, did I ever play this? I can't really remember anymore. Yeah, I played it with the Move controllers. You can also play it with a gamepad. So there are many ways you can explore this game. You can't play with an aim controller. I do see a lot of people talk about that. But if they did want to add a aim controller to Borderlands 2 VR, they had to, redesign a lot to make that happen. So they kind of went for the fast track here. But overall, it's solid. It works really well. It's fun. It's an open world title, so I mean, you can go wherever you want, and you meet so many characters. They have a new voice line added to the game, like all kinds of inside VR jokes. And I mean, yeah, they really try to add something extra to this title when you play it in VR. You have this, this BAMF time where it's a slow motion. That's something you can only use on the VR version. That's not on the Pancake game. And also, the way you can snipe is different too. Like when you were using a sniper rifle in the Pancake version, you look through the scope, and in the VR version they have a kind of like interface popping up. Honestly, like, let's say if you are a PSVR expert, a veteran, someone who's playing every day, it's easy to get into. But let's say you are new to VR and you just bought, let's say, this PlayStation VR bundle with Beat Saber and Borderlands, and you decide to go in there. It's quite overwhelming how the controls work, because you need to know you have 2 move controllers, and every move controller has like a bunch of buttons on there, and every button does something else. So you need to know how to throw a grenade. You need to know the button combinations to activate your BAMF time. You need to rotate yourself towards, of course, the camera, because it is a front-facing experience after all. And that's something I did notice, that and it's the same with Skyrim. Like any game day part, there are so many buttons that you use in these shooters that you need to find a way to all, stuff them into those controllers. So even after getting the tutorial, I was still kind of like trying to get into it, and I was even struggling, and I'm someone who's playing a lot of VR.
It's the same thing with Skyrim. Like the first time I tried, I really had to like learn like the control scheme just to like, be able to play it, which I find always a little bit, when you make a VR title, like the key is immersion, you want immersion, but if you need to memorize button controls, then for me that always like
it requires some patience.
Out of the experience,
It's the same.
One question: can you interact with objects, or is it the same as it was?
It's an arcadey VR part. So you can you can aim with your moves. You can shoot. You can also do melee attacks. But there is no way you can open a treasure chest by yourself, pressing buttons, things like that. It's all like laser pointer stuff, like you did in Fallout and in
Right. What's the locomotion method? I'm curious. Is it similar to Skyrim where you hold down a button and it moves you forward? You hold another button to go back.
It's the same thing. It's like holding that. What is it? This button right here. This one.
The mega button.
And
I don't know what it is.
You can also teleport if you want. You can also use a combination of teleporting and walking at the same time. And
is it blink teleport or is it dash?
I think you can use both. Okay. They have a lot of settings, like loads of settings. I think this is one of the only games I've played so far that has way more settings than any other VR game. Also in terms of comfort options, where you have that view around you that kind of blacks out when you start walking. There are so many versions of that too. It's just that, and this is something I noticed yesterday, is that the names they put on all the options are a little odd, because we have a certain standard in VR of how you call smooth locomotion and stuff like that, and they have different ways of naming things, and that's kind of confusing. If you play a lot of VR, then you need to just turn them on and check them out and see what they do before you start to understand.
Is it that they're they're renamed for fun, or is it just that they just decided arbitrarily to pick different names?
No, it's just because they are new to VR. They never made a VR part before, so I think that they didn't really look at other games and named them the same way. But it is important, I would say, because then you know what you're getting into. Because, for example, I turned on smooth turn. Okay, so usually smooth turn is like this, right? Like
continuous motion.
But in this case, it's still a snap turn. So for them, smooth turning is gradual. So gradual is smooth turning. But I didn't know that. I was like, well, smooth turning, that should do the tricks. I was like, well, this is weird. But I'm very happy it came to PlayStation VR. It's really fun to play. You can also drive cars. That's something that you can only do in first person on the VR version. It's still it's not like you're doing this with your hands. It's just pressing those buttons and trying to drive. And there are also a lot of buttons that you need to use while driving, because it's a lot to
take in.
Yeah, for sure. But there are a few things that I thought were problematic. One of them is something we can't solve, and hopefully the next gen PlayStation VR will get that sorted out. You constantly need to face forward, and the pancake version of Borderlands is a 360 title, and the enemies are also attacking you in that way. So they're behind you, they're in front of you. There's something going on everywhere. And if you are in this battle, then you forget about the fact you're playing with a PlayStation VR. You forget about the limitations it has. So sometimes you're like, oh, I need to turn around again because your hands are floating away. And that's something you need to learn. That's something if you are new to VR, then you need to learn that. If you are someone who plays on PlayStation VR all the time, then you know what to do. But it's still like it's a 360 game. So
I think that's also part to blame, because we're so used to having 360 VR because we play with the Rift, we play with the Vive. Well, if you I know that, for example, PSVR Frank, he doesn't have any problems with that.
No, it's like he's automatically responding to the
exactly
nose.
Exactly.
Yeah. But as I said, you know, if you are someone who just gets a PSVR headset, then you need to deal with, you know, all those button combos, but also with the fact you need to face the camera. And it's not like you need to completely face it. You can still turn around. I mean, you know that the angles of the PSVR are not bad at all. It's just that if you are like in that end, like in some kind of like mini boss, and you're like, oh, I'm doing so well, then after a while you're like so excited that you're like, oh, I gotta get this, and then you're like, oh, I need to turn around as well. And another thing that I thought they should fix is the fact that you have a HUD, but it's really hard to see. So the map is almost disappearing out of your field of view, and you can't even, you know, see it properly because it's not in the sweet spot. And that's the same with the ammunition. It's like all the way down, almost at a part where it's like disappearing out of the screen. So the HUD was kind of odd. Also, when you know, wanted to buy a gun on the vending machine, then if you played Borderlands, you know that they use a lot of these holograms, right, that pop out of the machine. Well, if you were too close to the machine, the hologram was just inside the machine, so you had to go back a little bit physically or walk back and then start to use the machine again. So there are some things clipping through, you know, the objects. But again, it was just so much fun to go back to Borderlands, and you know, going on a trip with Claptrap is great. It's really nice. I just hope they will.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of like, you know, value for money, you know, you're going to be playing this game a bit like Skyrim. You know, it's one of those games you buy and you just play for hours and hours and hours. And I get what you mean about the controls.
Skyrim by now, Mike? How many hours do you have?
I've got like half an hour or an hour. I was like, yeah, fuck this. It's not my bag. But Borderlands is my bag. I would say I'm more interested in Borderlands, and I've got a key for it on the PSVR, so I am going to check it out. But I think, you know, for those that are interested in Borderlands, you know, they're going to invest the time to, like you say, learn all these controls and master them. And I think it'll become second nature once you kind of get into the game a fair amount. But yeah, it's a good point to raise for VR newcomers for sure. But the thing is, like, Borderlands 2 was kind of put into the spotlight, particularly over the last couple of days. It only released yesterday, but there was a lot of controversy because it kind of got slammed by IGN in their review, and it got a lot of backlash, obviously, which I think is warranted from the PSVR community, because a lot of people like yourself, they played it, they live streamed it, and you know, although it did, like you say, had some minor flaws, you know, overall it's a Borderlands 2 experience in VR, which is, you know, exactly what VR really needs right now, these kind of like fully fledged big open world experiences.
Totally.
And so on IGN they had this review, and just to sort of quote some of it, they described the game as an awkward, unwieldy, often defective seeming port which reimagines the nimble action classic as a sluggish and clumsy slog for the PSVR, and they gave it a 3 out of 10, which I think was really overly harsh. It's
pretty damning, to be honest. For IGN, they don't usually dip that low unless it's bad. They're saying stay out, you know.
I mean overall,
I mean, in a way, I can understand that if it's your first time in virtual reality, and you know, you don't know the button schemes, and you know, you have those kind of controllers that you're not used to, you need to constantly be forward facing. I can imagine that it can feel like that, though, in a way.
Like, well, I mean, let's be honest, like overall the ratings weren't that high. I mean, Upload and also Road to VR, they weren't really rating it that high because it does have some flaws, but they weren't, in my opinion, game breaking. It's just, you know, there is some work to be done, but I mean, it's Gearbox. They just started their first VR part, and I'm sure, like, based on the past, like Borderlands is also still getting updated on the pancake versions. I mean, Gearbox is, I'm sure they will use the feedback to improve. But with IGN, I mean, a 3 out of 10, that's super duper low.
And the thing is, like, I read I read the whole article, and they made some valid points. You know, the fact that co-op is missing. You know, we've highlighted that on the show before, and I think that is a big shame. You know, and a missed opportunity there. But it could be limitations of the PSVR, and it could potentially come to PCVR. We just don't know yet. But also, like, they mentioned in their review that there's no way to sprint, strafe, jump, or spin besides short, jagged pivots left or right. And as you said, you know, in the menu, there is options for smooth turning. So it's clear that they didn't explore the settings in the menu thoroughly enough to cover in their review, which is a real shame.
What you said, if they already talk about Snapturn, then that means that they just went for the basic stuff. Because when you first jump into Borderlands VR, it's on Snapturn. So if you didn't jump into the menu, then
yeah, that's what I mean with like maybe it was someone who is not that experienced in virtual reality, because I don't know, does IGN actually cover that much virtual reality? Only like the bigger titles, I think.
They actually hired David from Upload, who regularly reviews for Upload. Yeah, and I'm surprised that he didn't take this review because, obviously he's a VR veteran. He would have been perfect for this one. So it's a bit surprising they didn't choose him and choose someone else instead. But yeah, obviously the review got a lot of backlash from the PSVR community, and they've actually since removed the review from their website and took the video down as well. So they're obviously going to readdress it and maybe look into the fact that all the settings weren't explored, and maybe they'll have an updated review to reflect another reviewer's opinion maybe. But
maybe David will review it after all.
Maybe he will, yeah. But if you've played this game, let us know in the comments as well what you think. I'd love to know. But do you think aim support will come eventually down the road, Nathy, or do you think that's probably unlikely?
I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know. We kind of need to wait for Gearbox. It kind of depends on what they, if they see value in, updating it to a point where you can use your aim controller. I think they're kind of waiting to see how many people, get into this game. And also if they add a multiplayer in the near future, and that could be on PlayStation, that could be on PC, that there will be a lot of people saying like, hey, listen, we want, more controls in that sense. And they might listen. I don't know. Like, I'm not that familiar with Gearbox in that sense of like, hey, we have a cool idea. Let's make it happen. If you know what I mean. What I do know is that when I played Borderlands 1, 2, and also the pre-sequel, they were always, giving away keys, improving stuff. There's still a big community playing Borderlands. I mean, it's a popular game. But as you said, if there is a multiplayer coming, then there might be some more. I don't think they will do it right now. I feel like they are kind of waiting to see what everyone thinks of this game. They might also bring the pre-sequel to VR, who knows, and then add aim support. But it's something you do need to implement in some way, and it will take some extra time, because if you add a multiplayer, I mean, people move their hands. You need to all. I mean, I'm not a developer, so what I'm saying here sounds a bit noob. But it takes more time than just like, oh, let's just add an aim controller and.
But isn't the main issue akimbo the fact that you've got two guns? Like, isn't that the main issue?
That's what I wanted to say as well. Like, because with the aim controller, you take away like the benefit of like using your both hands to be shooting.
Yeah, like, I mean, Doom was a great example of how that felt feckin' awkward when you thought. I mean, you have your shotgun and you're like, wow, this feels great. It feels really fantastic with the aim controller. But then we're like, oh, I gotta push a button to like throw a grenade, and it kind of feels like really lopsided. So I just can't imagine it would translate well unless the people in the classes in Borderlands. Is there any class that is specifically single weapon, like sniper? In other words, I don't have two guns?
That doesn't make any sense, because you still want to use two
pistols. So maybe not this iteration.
I don't think that aim control support will ever come, just because of that reason. Because people are gonna then complain, but can I hook up two aim controllers? Like, just imagine.
That would be so cool.
So Gamertag VR says that dual wielding is a superpower in Borderlands, so there is no dual wielding. So technically they could add it, but again, it will take some serious time. Is it worth it? I don't know.
And also in terms of multiplayer, I think there's maybe a problem with that. You don't see like the hands probably moving. Like, I don't know if you played a multiplayer with the Serious Sam.
Or Payday.
Your character just like floats over the floor, like it's like.
I mean, even if they, I mean, they could go for that, and that doesn't really matter as long as you have a great experience. I mean, Serious Sam was super fun to play. Also, Payday as well. You can't see the characters actually waving to each other.
Minecraft had that same problem actually for multiplayer for a long time, because someone would be like looking this way. And be like, hey guys, let's go over here. And like, all right. And you start going off that way. You're like, no, I wasn't looking that way. I was going over here. It's like if you don't have that reflection. Multiplayer throws in all these other bits. So if I was to guess, it's not a limitation of PSVR or the network. It's probably a resource limitation in terms of the knowledge to develop that and have the funds to be able to siphon for it. you know.
I do think we will see a lot of changes along the way, and also the PC version will be different because the controllers we have on PC don't have that many button combinations as the moves have.
Yeah.
So there will be some changes because when I wanted to, for example, throw a grenade in Borderlands, I was just shooting it out of my body. You press a button and whoop, there goes your grenade. It's not like, oh, I have a grenade, let's throw it. No, you don't throw it. It's just boop. But I think that if you play it on PC, I don't think you have enough space to also press a button for that one grenade you have. But yeah, hopefully, I want the multiplayer. For me, it felt kind of strange to play Borderlands alone. At the start, I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. I mean, I've Claptrap on my side, and we are on this adventure together. But as you know, later down the road, you need to play alone as well. And then I start to feel lonely, then I start to get hungry for, I'm driving this car, but what if, let's say, Mike or Rowdy sits on top and has that rocket launcher and shoots, and what if I just found a shield, but I can't take it with me, but maybe my friend wants to have it to equip in his infantry. So, I mean, those are things that I love about, Borderlands, that shared experience, looting together, doing side quests together, laugh together, because, I mean, the jokes are great, and the characters are freaking psycho, and I mean the jokes are so weird. I love it, but it's just I would not play this alone. I can't play this entire game alone. I just want a multiplayer, and I feel like they will do that. And I'm not sure. Maybe on the PlayStation VR they are too scared to do it, but on PC I just hope they will. And I mean on Steam and also Oculus Home they will not be very happy if they don't. Borderlands is a multiplayer for me. It doesn't feel the same when it's a single one.
The thing is, I'll just underscore this for PSVR players. Couch co-op, right, where both players are in the game, is a big thing, and of course we all want the ability to play multiplayer over the internet and all that. But having a mate sit on the couch while you're playing single player and you're laughing about it and they're seeing it and you're in it or whatever, you swap turns, that's still a pseudo multiplayer experience, and that's why I think that it will succeed in that package with Beat Saber, because they give you the thing that you can tire yourself out with, and then something that's a little bit higher edge that you count as familiar. So honestly, it's actually helping to sell Beat Saber, because if you have never seen Beat Saber before, you might actually be buying that package to pick up Borderlands, and then you get Beat Saber and you go, holy shit, this is what VR is? Bloody hell, guys. I mean, what a package.
No, I do agree with you, but still, I mean, taking the multiplayer out of Borderlands is a big chunk of the pie, and that's why I think also the reviews so far are pretty low, because that's one of the reasons why you play Borderlands. And in the chat, this is kind of funny, and I had the same issue, and I thought I was the only one. Gamertag said that every time he entered a menu in Borderlands, he accidentally threw a grenade, and I was doing the same thing all the time, and I was like, maybe I'm just stupid, because I don't play that much on the PlayStation VR. I maybe play on the PSVR once a week, so someone who's playing the entire week will not just accidentally throw a grenade, I thought. But he also did it, and he's like a guy who's only playing on the PSVR. So and those kind of things pretty much prove that how they designed the way you use all these buttons together does not really work, because you don't want to throw a grenade when you're in the menu, because the moment you do it, you're like, oh, I see it right there, and now I need to get out of the menu and then run for my life, because otherwise I kill myself. And that's something I had too. I was constantly pressing the wrong buttons when I wanted to, snap turn. I was throwing a grenade, and when I did wanted to throw a grenade, I was jumping instead. So I was like going all over the place with my controls.
So with that in mind, and obviously, if people have just maybe read or watched the IGN review and seen this atrocious score, do you think that score is justified, or do you think it is a better game than IGN have made it out to be?
It's not a 3 out of 10. I have not seen their video, so I don't know what they said, but it's not a 3 out of 10. I think it's around a 5, a 6 maybe. Because I do think that the multiplayer will bump that up. Plus, HUD-wise, control-wise, stuff like that need to be improved. But, let's say if you are a PC player and you are like, oh, I can't play this right now, I think you're kind of lucky, because now they can figure everything out. patch it, and then the PC version might be better. It depends.
Yeah.
You know, we have never seen Gearbox dedicate themselves to VR, but I have some good feelings about them as a developer, you know, as a company, and 2K as well as a publisher. I think they will, you know, address some issues.
On the multiplayer as well, we got a comment from Paradise Decay. Oh, Mike could be Nate's claptrap.
Thanks for that, Petey. Cheers.
Well, if they do bring the pre-sequel to VR, like in that one, you can play as Claptrap. I actually played as Claptrap with Farpax back then, and it's really funny. It's amazing. So
that explains the oil stains.
Yes, exactly. But you know, if you like a cartoony shooter and you want to have like loads of content, I think it takes you around maybe 30 hours to finish this one, and I played around 55 to 60 hours because there are so many side quests, and you keep on going to Moxie's place to like gamble with your money. I mean, that's something that never gets old, and just, you know, in general, this story of this title is amazing. And you know, even that there is no multiplayer with all these characters around you interacting with you, you don't have to feel alone all the time. It's just when you run around through that wasteland, it's like, I could use a good social conversation right now with someone next to me, because that's how I always played Borderlands, you know, with a friend, and just, you know, talking about all kinds of stuff while playing the game. It's one of those games that, you know, you can chit chat about life and just grind in the meanwhile, get some nice loot, and, you know, so.
Okay. Yeah.
But not a 3 out of 10 for sure.
Not a 3 out of 10.
No.
So there we have it. That's Borderlands 2 on the PSVR, and like you know, we said it's going to be coming to PC in around 5 months' time.
5 months.
PCVR, PSVR window of exclusivity is 5 months. So let's move on to some other quick news then. And next up, it seems that Christmas has come early for Beat Saber players, as yesterday the Beat Saber team released a new free track on all platforms. The new track is by a band called Noah and is called One Hope, and it's available for free right now, so you can just check it out on any platform. I got to play it out this morning before the show, and yeah, I think it's pretty good. It's definitely growing on me the more I play it. At first I was a bit like, it's a bit of a different style because it's more of like a kind of a rock heavy track with a kind of lyrical background. Not quite the bassy hooks of the Yaroslav Beck tracks that we know and love, but it's cool nevertheless, and I'm glad that, you know, we're all getting it for free. I actually ranked number 10 on playing it on hard this morning, so you know, yeah, I don't think many people have played it then, so I'm sure by the end of the day I'll sink back to the depths where I belong.
I was number 1 for such a long time, before anyone played it.
Before it was released, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I was like, we had early access to it.
I was like, in a demo build, I was number 1, you know, there was no one else who could beat me.
Yeah.
It was like a local high score board, by the way.
Yeah, just screenshot it while it lasts. But yeah, it's cool to see that, you know, we're getting still free tracks over time. I think everyone who owns the PCVR version right now is still yearning for the PSVR exclusive tracks, particularly the one called Unlimited Power, which is my new favorite, which is the one that goes, you know, we should play. We're playing Beat Saber. Yeah. I love that track. So yeah, just before we move on, also some interesting stats about Beat Saber on PSVR that was shared by the Beat Saber team via a tweet this week, and that is that it was released on the 20th of November, and then was the most downloaded PSVR title for the whole month of November, which I don't think necessarily is a surprise, but I think it will be interesting to see who wins next month in terms of December sales now that Borderlands 2 has come out. I wonder if that'll take the crown, but we'll find out. So the next bit of news we've got before we move on is that Facebook and the Zenimax lawsuit, after 4 long years, is finally over. Zenimax, if you're not aware, is the parent company of Bethesda and id Software. Facebook obviously owns Oculus. But if you're not aware of what happened, let me give you the very brief lowdown. This whole debacle started shortly after Facebook acquired Oculus in 2014, and the lawsuit from Zenimax alleged the misuse of intellectual property relating to the founding of Oculus. And basically the crux of their complaint was that id co-founder, or id co-founder, John Carmack developed software whilst working at id, and then carried that software over to Oculus when he started working for them. The judge in the case originally awarded Zenimax $500 million in damages to be paid by the defendants, which obviously include Facebook and some of the Oculus co-founders. That figure was later appealed and reduced to 250 million, which is still a big chunk of change for any company, even Facebook. But Zenimax even tried to halt the sales of Rift completely at one point. But thankfully that was quickly dismissed. Otherwise, I think, that would really put a nail in the coffin of Oculus, and who knows where it would have been right now. But thankfully, both parties this week have now settled and ended the litigation in an undisclosed deal that happened privately between them prior to the appeal being heard at court. So we had a statement from Zenimax Outman, who said, "We are pleased that a settlement has been reached and we are fully satisfied by the outcome. While we dislike litigation, we will always vigorously defend any infringement or misappropriation of our intellectual property or by third parties."
Yep.
Makes sense.
Facebook also commented on it and just said briefly, "We're pleased to put this behind us and continue building the future of VR."
Nice. Well,
So-
that's a good end after all. Like, everyone
I think
happy.
so.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's good because, with this kind of thing dragging on, and, we had it with Bethesda releasing titles on Steam VR that obviously weren't compatible with Oculus, and, it was kind of a little bit of a mud throwing contest. But yeah, I'm glad that it's kind of over now and everyone can kind of just move on and just focus on what they need to, because it must take a tremendous amount of resources from both parties to get involved in something like this, including money as well.
But for a situation that's still in code situation, this is kind of what I expected it to settle at. At some point, someone was going to hand over cash, because from all of the all of the different the printouts from the court sessions that they had, where Palmer Luckey was giving, John was giving, their testimony. It certainly seemed like they took a big chunk of code and brought it right over to Oculus, and that was developed on time. So it seemed only fair that there was going to be a payout at some stage. I'm personally glad that Oculus haven't been dented in the way, that in a publicly facing way. They've got obviously the hit to the bank. But I have to concur with what you were saying, Mike, in terms of it could have really derailed them in the early days of VR. Nobody wants that in the industry, because it doesn't help. It only hurts. And, shame on them if that's what happened in the end and what they did. But it's still a success story in the end, I think, for both companies. And I have to say that I don't think that Zenimax have done the wrong thing either, going after them lawsuit-wise. I think they should have, and I'm glad they're getting a payout for it.
Do you think they only handed over money, but also that they maybe own a percentage of, because I mean, it's coming from them, so it's like the Rifts are getting sold, and
Like
We
royalties.
really don't know.
Yeah.
The deal was
We won't
undisclosed, and I don't think we'll ever find
so
out.
it could be like if someone buys a Rift, then Zenimax also gets a little bit of that, because I mean, it's their technology as well.
If you
Good
want to
point.
know, the best path, right, is you you hunt down John Carmack, because he's definitely gonna know the outcome of this, at a bar at OC6, and just get him drunk. That's it.
Yes.
He's gonna have a lot of interested people. John, you're having a great
Well, John
OC6.
John Carmack himself actually sued Zenimax as well as a counter-sue, because apparently they owed him money in relation to the franchise of Doom, apparently. So over the id Software. So it was kind of a lot of lawsuits going on at the same time, but that's been resolved as well now, apparently.
Talking about Carmack, he DM'd me when he saw my tweet about my Oculus Go, and it's fixed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he wanted to have my serial number, and he was looking into the stats and stuff like that, and then like this guy's a magician. I mean,
He fixed my computer. He fixed my coffee machine. My
worked on
refrigerator wakes up with me when I wake up in the morning. His code is just magic.
he built the Go after
He
all,
did,
so he
yeah.
knows everything about it. But he was super helpful, and I was like, I'm just gonna give him the serial number. I'm not gonna say too much here. Let him just do his thing, and so now it's working again.
That does scare me a little bit. It scares me a little bit. It's like I'm just gonna hack into your Go and anyone else's Go on the planet.
I don't know what stats he can see, but he was definitely interested in how hot it got and stuff like that.
How hot it got. Yeah. Well, what kind of websites you
not
can visiting with your
content
Go,
wise,
right?
not content wise, just on the He's
2.5 hours in a web browser. Nathy.
Half an hour? That's a long time.
He said 2.5. I was like, there's no friggin' way. 2.5 hours.
My standards are a bit different. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. You certainly got the VIP, service there. You don't get tech support from John Carmack every day. So nice
I
work.
was surprised. I was surprised too. But I thanked him for helping me. I said now I can finally continue making videos with the Go and So
that's awesome.
People are asking in the chat, Nathy, when you say "Let's go," is that a reference to how hot it will get?
Oh my god.
I have no comment.
Let's go.
So the final bit of news this week before we move into the releases is just a public service announcement that, again, I've reiterated this many times, but again, I want to reiterate again that you can get a free VR game today. Subnautica is currently free to download and own forever from the new Epic Games store. You can download the game for free up until the 27th of December, and then they're going to be swapping out for another game, which I think is Super Meat Boy, but obviously that's not VR compatible. But Subnautica works in VR. It is gamepad only, so just be aware of that. Some of the UI is very clunky, but as we know, Zim is a big fan of Subnautica, and You said it was like one of the scariest games in VR, right?
Yeah, I mean, you look at it and you go, oh, that looks so pretty. It's going to be so nice. I'm going to have like Pokemon in the underwater, and then all of a sudden something with teeth comes at you and you're like, oh my god, Bulbasaur, what did you eat?
So it's well worth downloading and checking out, especially for free. Like, you can't complain about that.
Yeah, I think if you don't do it, you're going to be kicking yourself later.
Yeah.
Does this mean we will soon have a new PC Master Race Lord? Is this going to be, Todd Sweeney, our new, Emperor?
Could be.
Our new
Lord Sweeney. Lord Sweeney versus Lord Gaben, and he should lightsaber battle it out,
I mean, as a peasant, I do want to thank him for Subnautica.
The peasants, thank you. Yes.
Guys, I need to head on off.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much for joining us, Rowdy. Yes. Thank you for joining us for this part of the show. And you'll be back next week. It's just that you have to run off to an appointment. So we all understand. Indeed. So everyone say goodbye to Rowdy in the chat. Give him a little wave. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next week. See you later, dude.
Bye-bye.
So now we're going to hand over to Zim this week to cover the game releases. So you don't have to listen to my droning voice the whole show.
This is new. I like.
So it is. It's a new segment. We're just trying something out. So Zim gets some sort of airtime, and he can talk about the new releases and the things that you should be checking out in the metaverse coming out next week. So take it away, Zim, whenever you're ready.
Excellent, and thanks. I was just trying to. I just realized I'm like, God, I've got like 6 things to do right now. Rowdy had to go just then. I've got to update his image on like all these different scenes, and he's got a lovely smile on. We'll just focus on that for a minute. But I'm gonna start off by asking you a simple question before I mention my first topic here, which is about VRChat. Which is, can you remind me? I've actually forgotten. I think there's a part of my brain that has compartmentalized it and stuck it in the memory drawer with January 2018 memories. What were all the popular memes with VRChat? I'd just like to remind our audience of those things before I go into the news.
The Knuckles was clearly the most popular one. Do you know the way was super popular, and then it just kind of spawned into loads of other ones like Swole Ben, from like Star Wars. Ben Solo. Swole Ben when he takes his top off. There was like legions of Swole Bens running around. It was just like basically flash mobs of any sort of character was a big meme in itself.
My favorite one were the cat band, and then make music together.
The cat band, they were great.
I was just joining everyone, and you were just looking in the mirror, making music, and man,
you guys have such like better. The only thing I remembered was like the are you the commander, and do you know the way, and all that. Like that was probably the only thing that I caught, but all the things you just mentioned, I never understood those. So anyway,
there was so much more. It was a meme fest,
and it continues to be, I think, because they've got like more than 1,000 worlds you can go into and all these characters. So if you didn't know what VRChat was and you happened to miss that boat, let's say you got a headset in the last 6 months, you could have missed the whole VRChat spike. VRChat, I would have said last year around about this time, maybe a little bit month later in January more than December, was the hot title in VR. It was all over the place. All the big names were doing it. People were getting popular on YouTube and Twitch. Just rolling VRChat, and it's just now dropped on Oculus Store. So what does that mean? That probably means a little bit improved performance. It does come with a patch, and they have dropped this patch as part of their Unity 2017.4 update. I had to look at what that means, and it was a lot of dev speak, and it looks like performance optimization primarily that goes hand in hand with that. But there's a fresh rebranding across their existing storefronts. They dropped a new trailer, and that's pretty much it. So if you didn't get a chance to jump into this kind of social experience, I'd say now's probably a pretty good time, because I'd say it's cooled off a bit from where it went a bit nuts last January.
A bit crazy.
Also, the trailer you see right now, that's the old one. That's not the new one.
That is not the new trailer. No, I was rolling the old one.
Apologies. That was my fault. But something I just wanted to quickly mention about VRChat is that because Oculus has started adding these kind of in-home items that you can unlock for spending time in game. So like if you spend time in Super Hot, you unlock a big red enemy character. I'd love it if you could unlock a little Knuckles and just put them in your room. That would just be. I would go back and play it for that very reason alone.
Like Mike was obsessed by this Knuckle creature. And he even bought, like, he had a T-shirt he was wearing.
I had a T-shirt.
I thought he had socks too. I can't remember. And sometimes when we were like months after this meme happened that we played like a multiplayer, he sometimes just had to like bring up this dead meme of his. But
I wouldn't let it die.
That's the beauty of VRChat. You can become the meme. You can become a meme if you want. That's amazing. Oh man, that was so much fun.
Gentlemen, please join me here in song. But you know what would happen? Like there'd be so many Oculus homerooms from your friends where you teleport in, you turn around, and it's just a sea of them, like looking up at you, the Knuckles.
Yeah. Staring into your soul.
Anyway, so that was Oculus Home's release of VRChat. So do give it a shot, try it out, and report back next week. So the next thing I wanted to cover is Shattered State, which is a really interesting game that when I first saw it, my brain went Black Mirror, and there's a whole bunch of different BBC constructed shows which this seems like. So it's a political thriller VR game. Let me run the trailer for you so you get a little bit of a snap on this. Unfortunately, it's only launching on Daydream, which to me when I saw this was no, because I really
the same way.
Have appreciated Supermassive Games' previous games. They've launched a whole ton of things actually, so they're one of the more I don't think I would have recognized their name per se, but they've done Tumble VR, which I think was their first PSVR title. Then they did Until Dawn: Rush of Blood, which I rate very highly, and I think Mike, you've got that coming up in your list of things to do. The Impatient and Bravo team. So they've had a kind of like a funny wave of things coming, but this this title is a really interesting looking thing, Shattered State. So basically, you're sitting in what I'll call the kind of I hate to use his name, but the Trump seat. You're sitting in the driving seat while a nation state is running into trouble, and you actually get certain information fed to you, and you have to make decisions. So to an extent, to me, this is kind of like a VR choose your own adventure, where that narrative and the path that you're taking on that tree differs. The end-to-end playthrough time is supposed to be somewhere between kind of 40 minutes and an hour, depending on how quick you're making decisions and all that, which paths you take. But it's meant to be quite varied in terms of the way it turns out. But to me, it certainly sounds like an intriguing type of game story, and something that I kind of wished, that other kind of short that we saw recently, The Great Sea. I kind of wish those two would have a baby, because I'd love a game like The Great Sea with that story depth, with decisions actually in it, not just watching it. So Great Sea is kind of a flat narrative, and this thing looks pretty enticing. I don't know. What do you guys think about it?
Usually, like Daydream is like a springboard towards other devices. So I think it will happen. It's just that this could be their comeback in a way, because Bravo Team was like a disaster.
It was. It's unfortunate, that game, for sure. But the second I saw this trailer, I knew I'd love this game. You know, I'm a big fan of like Papers, Please. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one in the chat, but you know, that kind of like, you know, you're involved in the story. It's very kind of political. You have to kind of steer the narrative a little bit. But this kind of looks like, you know, you've been giving this information, like you said, Zim, and you really have to make these like critical decisions that not only affect you but the nation, it seems. So it's a huge responsibility, but it looks like a lot of fun. So I really hope this comes to the go. You know, it'd be a perfect fit for that headset. Yeah. And like Nathan said, you know, these Daydream titles do tend to gravitate towards the go eventually. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
A little bit heavy rain stuff again, where, you know, you make a decision and it has like a big impact, and you need to try to sometimes use your emotions to make your choice, and sometimes you need to be you know, strong,
level-headed.
Okay, I have to sacrifice some people now, but I mean, we gotta save the world. So no, I think that's fun. Yeah.
I kind of love a twist on this title. There was a game called, I think it was called Plague or Plague something.
Yeah, Plague with a virus.
Yeah, with the virus, where you're basically trying to kill humanity with a virus, with a viral outbreak. So I'd love if there was a dev out there who was willing to go on the dark side of this and do it the other way around. Instead of saving the world, you're trying to take down the world. It'd be kind of fun to do.
Oh, you play like an evil villain.
Yeah, where you play an evil villain. It could be DLC. There you go. I gave you a freebie. So this game is it has actually already. Sorry, we've got this launched for £8 or $8.49, which is not a bad split, to be honest. That's okay. And as I said, about a kind of an hour long or so that you can expect it to be. So there you go. That's on Daydream if you happen to have one. I've actually never tried Daydream. Have you, lads?
No. I would be intrigued to try one out though. You know, maybe I quite kind of like the idea of having a Lenovo or Mirage Solo to check it out. But I know they're difficult to come across nowadays.
So that one was an 11th of December launch. We've got another one as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about a title that Rowdy was speaking about playing last week. So launched it again on the 11th of December, which is a real BS game. It's just total BS. Sorry, I have to keep plugging this joke, but Blade and Sorcery, which is a gladiator title. And this game is, again, similarly, I like the pricing on this one, the difference. So it's basically $20 US. And $15.50 or $15.49 in pounds. So again, on that one, we're getting a little bit better on the FX rate change. But this game is a gladiator. What can I call it? You know,
it's like a realistic version of Gorn.
Exactly, it's like a realistic version of Gorn. I love the way they were saying if you ever wanted to be in a pit of men throwing knives at people's heads, this is the game for you. So it really does. It does look like that. I think from Rowdy's gameplay as well and his impressions that he gave to us, I'm quite keen to check it out because Gorn is quite cartoony, and I do tend to be more of a simmer than somebody who likes kind of the cartoony stuff. But looks really good fun. But you know the environments that they have in it are quite varied. Look more so than Gorn that way. But it's quite as Mike said, kind of a realistic gladiator simulator and. Not a bad price. You know, that's a very decent kind of starting point. So I think that's probably. Have either of you guys actually played it since? I was curious.
I've never played Blade and Sorcery, no, but I am looking forward to checking it out. I do like like when Rowdy discussed it last time on the show, that it's kind of got these nice physics to it that you can actually stab someone, which is kind of intense, but it sounds interesting. Jesus. But you can also you can also parry and you know those kind of you know, physics work well in the game. So that's kind of what it makes it interesting for me to check out. Not so much that I want to stab people, but more to play around with those physics, you know, and see how they react.
Well, he said there was a kind of a resistance, kind of like what you have in Red Matter, where you got that resistance to movement. So when you're putting a spear through somebody's head, which I was just cringing at, you know, you actually feel it. So the final little quick piece of release news I was just going to mention here is one other little bit, and it's for my PSVR buddies. So Firewall is dropping its third DLC pack, and they have kind of redone their store to look all Christmassy and things. Sorry, their the lobby where you're queuing up to look Christmassy. Details are going to be dropping over the course of the next week. And the thing that I liked the most from this news was, other than yes, it's another free DLC pack dropping. They've got a way to deal with AFK players, and with that in kind of quotes, I can only think that means Mr. Knifey Knife is coming out, and you have an ability after a certain amount of time probably to take out other players, which would be lovely.
Wow, that is interesting. Yeah. So what was the problem? That people were just dropping out of games, and then they were stuck in as a character in the game, and then you couldn't complete the match? Or?
Yeah, more walking away from their gear or whatever. I mean, like, you know, just being AFK. So, or AFG.
Oh, okay.
AFG.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, nice. Well, thanks for doing the releases this week, Zim. I really appreciate it. And, you know, maybe this will become a regular feature for you. I hope so, because it kind of takes the load off me a little bit.
I'd be happy
it's nice to hear someone else
fun.
talk about games for a change. It's nice. It's a nice mix.
Well, it's nice to get some other platforms. I mean, like you usually bring only Oculus stuff. I mean, people.
Oh, I see. I see.
So now we have someone that brings some. No, that's a joke. But it's nice to have like a different approach to that. Yeah, totally.
Mix it up a little bit for sure. For sure. So we're probably going to have to cut it to one topic because we are running out of time a little bit. We're already running a little bit late.
But pick now.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the Odin, I think, and then I'll carry over and talk about the neurable emotion analysis next week. It is a very interesting topic, but so I really do want to give it some time to talk about it, and I think it's an interesting one for discussion as well. But let's talk about the Odin then, because that's kind of one of the big hitters in terms of news this week in terms of hardware, and it's a new headset that's coming from a Russian-based company called Deus. Now, although you may never have heard of Deus, they've been making headsets for a while now, actually, in Russia. And they produced Odin development kits over time, and they're refining the development kits to this new headset that they're going to be launching. And they've also made one that's really interesting called the Svarog, I believe it's called. And it's a headset designed specifically for military applications, and particularly as remote drone piloting headset, which is crazy. So have been developing headsets for all sorts of applications. But their new headset is going to be called the Odin, and it will support the Steam VR content from the platform. So you can play Steam VR games with this. It's called the Pre, as it is a pre-release version, and it isn't the final version yet. So a bit like the Vive Pre when that first came out. But Road to VR got some specs from the company, which states that the headset will feature an LCD panel and a resolution of 2160 by 2160 per eye, which is much, much higher than the Vive Pro, which has a 1400 by 1600 per eye panels. So almost double the resolution of a Vive Pro, which is pretty impressive.
How does it compare to like a Pimax?
Well, in terms of field of view, it's still the 110 field of view that we know and love from Rift and Vive. Same refresh rate at 90 Hertz, and uses Fresnel lenses as well. So many similarities to what we currently know. But like I said, has this really high resolution display, which means that it's likely that screen door effect will be dramatically reduced to the point that you probably won't even be able to see it. Interestingly, they're going to be releasing their own proprietary base stations and controllers, which won't be cross-compatible with current Steam VR base stations or controllers. Okay. So that means you're not going to be able to use your Vive base stations or Steam 2.0 base stations or the Knuckles controllers, which will be coming out soon with this headset. You can only use their proprietary base stations and controllers, which is kind of bad, I guess, for gamers that kind of want to mix it up a little bit, especially with the controllers coming soon and the Knuckles. But it does have a benefit in that their own base stations, which they refer to as the Horus base station, has a wider tracking system than the Vive one, in that it can cover 200 square meters with just 2 base stations, which is super impressive.
Oh my God. Jesus, the
lasers,
Mike, Jesus. 200
I know,
meters.
Right?
That's a huge, that's a pitch. Like, that's huge. That's, oh my God.
Crazy. But also they're saying that you can use infinite amounts of base stations for, worldwide tracking, essentially. So, this is great for, the military training aspects, which they're clearly marketing this headset for, and VR arcades as well. Now, their controllers look like a hybrid of the Oculus Touch kind of grip with the ring as well, the sort of tracking ring, and the Vive ones, because it uses a touchpad in the center. Now, although the headset is mainly targeted at enterprise and clearly government military applications, it will be coming to prosumers potentially next year. So the Odin Pre is set to launch in February 2019 and will launch around $1,000 for the headset. And at first, it will only come with a single 3 Degrees of Freedom controller. It will then later launch with the 6 Degrees of Freedom controllers around the summertime, and that will be more aimed at sort of consumers and real high-end enthusiasts.
Wow, that's weird. That's really strange. That is
Bit of a strange.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, I know you probably don't want to launch a headset without some engagement in terms of, you know, being able to interact with things, because you wouldn't think about it. Think if you got a Go or any headset right these days with no ability for input control. But I still wonder, like, would a gamepad not be better, you know, than, because that's just a weird thing to give a proprietary 3DoF controller with a high def headset. What are you going to play on that? Like movies.
And I think this is clear, you know, like they really are targeting enterprise and government applications rather than gamers. But I think they're adapting the whole vision for gamers, because they obviously see that's a market as well. You know, so there is a lot of interest, of course, as we know with the Pimax, Xtal, and Starvia. There's a lot of interest from the VR community over these like high resolution headsets, higher wider field of view, and everything else. So, you know, it is kind of smart for them to say that this is coming for consumers as well. But it is kind of a weird approach to launch this amazing high resolution display headset with just a 3DoF controller initially.
I think they just want to start selling it up front, and then you know, people invest into it, and then they can upgrade it later. You know, you can already have the headset, and then I mean, if you play with that 3DoF controller, you're like, whoa, this resolution, this is amazing. Then you want those controllers and base stations as well, or horror stations. It's weird though, they call it horror stations. There's like that one game we played that is called Downward Spiral. Horror Station. Like, so basically, the story of the game is about some sensors. What?
Yeah.
That's weird. For some reason, I just got to highlight Nathan's shirt. It looks a little bit communist to me. I don't know if it's meant to be, but this was perfect for the. It's probably California, is it?
Yeah, this is California.
Yeah. I don't know why the bear and the red star kind of looked a little bit that way.
It's a communist Californian shirt or something. I don't know if that's a thing, but.
That's nice.
So the company Deus, they state that the final version could implement eye tracking and the virtual link connector, which we've discussed previously on the show before. But they haven't confirmed it. It's just kind of like a nice to have potentially in the future.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. That's what that is. That's like, oh, we could bolt all this cool stuff on it later. You know, anything's possible. I don't know. The one thing I like about it is it's a very Russian headset. It's like the military purposes, the way they're marketing it with like hot babes, like this whole thing. It's like it's very kind of a very proud Russian like headset. And I like that. I like that there's a Russian competitor in the market now. It's the Zangief of HMDs.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I love the fact that we've got all this competition in the marketplace now. It's really spicing up. And like we've said before on the show, you know, it seems like we're talking about a new headset each week. And like I think next week we're going to talk about another one like the Varo with this bionic display and talk about that.
Next year is going to be the war of the headsets. I think there will be a headset that will join, you know, the big boys. It's
for sure.
Now like a Chinese headset. We have a Russian one. We have an American one. I mean, everyone is like...
Yeah. Where's the German headset? I want a German headset out there. I want a German headset, please.
Call Voodoo.
Voodoo will know about it if it happens.
Because you know it'll just fucking rock. You know it'll be like, the specs will be awesome on that thing.
Well, wait a second. I think, isn't the Xtal a German one?
It's from Prague.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Czech is good too. Like.
Yeah, Czech is good.
Yeah, they can join in that lineup too.
No, the Eastern European bloc, there's strength there, you know, and I want to see something come out from that.
The UK also doesn't have their own headset yet.
Like UK will not. It will suck. Please do not. We're not big enough.
Sorry, Sim. I can't play with you today. I have a Holland headset. Sorry, I can't play this game now.
Yeah, I can just imagine what that would do to you.
Yeah. The British version would just be made of tea and biscuits. So that's basically what it would be made of.
God, that sounds good.
So if you're at CES next January, you can check it out in Las Vegas because the company are going to be there demoing the headset with the controllers and the base stations at CES. So I know a few of our colleagues are going to be there, so maybe they can check it out and report back their findings.
Oh, that'd be nice.
So yeah, that is the Odin Pre. So let us know what you think in the comments. I'd love to know your impressions of this Russian headset.
You just gave me a beautiful idea for Christmas, by the way, Mike.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah. You know how people usually build gingerbread houses? I'm going to build a gingerbread HMD, you know?
You've got to do that now.
You know? You can totally do that.
wear it.
And then you got to wear it and then eat it straight afterwards.
That's a good reason to make a wide field of view one, because then you can eat more.
Good point. That is an excellent point, Nathan, for sure.
And then also add like a breakout box and a computer too.
I want this to be a competition now. Like we should. Maybe this year's too early, but for next year, okay. I'm giving you guys a year to prepare. Right.
Okay.
We all make gingerbread VR headsets, and there's a competition, and live on the podcast they have to rate us.
I look forward to Nathan's gingerbread Tesla suit remake.
You get all the abs, like these graham crackers just stacked up, like.
Exactly.
Nice.
So let us know if you've got any questions in the chat, and we can answer some questions at the end. But like I said, we're gonna drop Neurable and talk about that next week. It is a really interesting topic, all about sort of controlling VR experiences with your brain power alone. So super interesting. So make sure you stay tuned next week for that, because it's gonna be super interesting. And then, ask us some questions and I'll round up the show times again. So just a reminder, it's a weekly VR, AR, and MR talk show, live streamed every Saturday on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. You can tune into the show live at 7 p.m. in Europe, 6 p.m. in the UK, and 12 midday in Central US. You can also check out the audio version available on iTunes, SoundCloud, on Anchor. So fire away, Nathan, if you've got any questions in the chat from our lovely viewers.
Well, according to Eric, there is a German headset. Some clone of the Acer Windows MR HMD.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It's not made out of
gingerbread, though.
No.
So I have to disappoint you. And then someone is asking, what do you think about the Elysium VR project? Anyone?
Oh, I think it's amazing. I almost covered it in the news this week. There's a so Elysium is like an MMO with a real economy world market. It's like a small town. It kind of looks a little bit like what was that zombie undead zombie game? I can't remember now, but it's a bit cartoony. The graphics are kind of low poly, but the idea is you've got weapons, you've got jobs, you've got money, and it's just kind of an open world MMO.
Okay.
And it looks like it could, if it gets some decent traction. They're quite a fair bit off of their backing. I just checked. They're under 2,000. They need 35K to get backed in the next like 35-40 days. But Elysium is definitely one. If you're a hot-footed backer, go check it out because it is an interesting idea.
Okay. So one question I have about Elysium, does it use blockchain technology as the backbone?
I wish it would, Mike. I wish it would.
Okay, because it kind of sounded like one of these projects that is like, we want to be the new Oasis, like Ready Player One. We use blockchain technology as the backbone, and it seems like as soon as someone says I use blockchain technology as the backbone, I know almost instantly that this project's going to die because I don't think I've seen any successful ones.
I don't remember reading last year. Yeah, I don't remember reading that, but the only thing that came to mind when they were like, oh, it's dynamic economy. I just remembered back, if anyone was a Counter-Strike Source player, at one stage around Christmas 2012, 2014, I don't remember, they introduced a dynamic economy, and the price of the Desert Eagle shot up to like $5 or $6 grand, which is normally like $700. So like the guns were based on like supply and demand, and it just went nutso. So anyway, that's totally what I would expect from Elysium's economy.
So now, the answer is to jump in now, buy everything while it's cheap, and then resell it later on.
Flog it later.
So apparently, Mike and I are trending on Twitter because they posted an image of us too, and this is it.
Okay. Wow. Oh my days!
It's us together. It's kind of hard to see, but
Trap.
Yeah, and then it says, "Stop touching me, Mike." Yeah.
This is getting into the realms of this kind of fan art of like Jacksepticeye and Markiplier, that's kind of weird.
It's just an image for now. It's not a story.
But, very strange.
Apparently, that's what we do in our free time. Then we don't really have anything else. I do want to add to your, like blockchain technology. It's still tricky. I do think like Somnium Space is doing very well. I don't think they are using it in the way you have seen in the past with projects that failed, but they have an economy too, and you can build like land or like buy land and then build something on it, and I mean it's slowly happening if you do it the right way, and you are transparent, then I think you could actually, you know, build your own little oasis. But, you know, having to say like, I'm gonna be the next, that's a bit too
I think the problem was a lot of people used it as a buzzword in the early days. You know, VR and blockchain were such new emerging technologies that combining them both seemed like a good idea, but it just was destined for failure. But yeah, Somi in Space is really interesting. We're actually going to be talking with them on the 27th of December, live with Vivian, who's going to be hosting the show. Me and Nick are going to be part of it as guests, and Vivian's going to be asking us questions. You know, which is going to be super interesting to be on the other side of the table receiving the
karaoke. I thought we were just going to sing some Christmas songs, but apparently we're going to have a serious talk. Okay.
Well, I think they're going to be very disappointed if you turn up and do that. So,
okay.
But anyway, let's end the show there then. Thank you for everyone that have joined us live and interacting in the chat. We always really appreciate you guys and girls coming by and interacting with us. I hope you guys and girls have enjoyed this episode. If you have, let us know in the comments. Leave a like, leave a review on iTunes, and we will see you next week at the same time. So until then, have a great week in the metaverse, and bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.
Peace out.